Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I am Shasti Conrad, chair of the Washington State Democrats. We have just some light housekeeping, which is that our amazing Representative Jayapal needs to leave a little early due to a previous engagement. So we will offer a chance for Q&A after her, and then Representative Strickland will deliver her statement, and Representative Adam Smith will be joining us around 12:30, and there will be another opportunity to ask him questions directly after he delivers his remarks. So it's a little bit of a rolling day for us, but we appreciate everyone for being here. We are holding this press conference because Donald Trump has officially been president for more than half of every day the federal government has been shut down in our nation's history. So across time, he has been the president for over half of the days spent in a federal government shutdown. And in Trump's own words, shutdowns are a sign of bad leadership. So we need to take him at his word. This is purely because congressional Republicans refuse to negotiate with Democrats to extend life-saving healthcare to millions of Americans. We have three national and state leaders from the U.S. House of Representatives to provide an update on where the shutdown stands and why Democrats are winning on the messaging and this moment and on policy over the shutdown. And so it is my extreme honor to introduce our wonderful Representative Pramila Jayapal. As you all know, Pramila represents the 7th Congressional District and is the first and only South Asian American woman ever elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, and one of just 24 naturalized citizens currently in Congress. Representative Jayapal is the chair emerita of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and in Congress she serves on the Steering and Policy Committee, the Budget Committee, the Committee on Foreign Affairs, and the Judiciary Committee, where she is the first immigrant to ever serve as ranking member of the Subcommittee on Immigration. She, before serving in Congress, spent over 20 years organizing and leading as the founder and executive director of One America, one of our incredible organizations in Washington State. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Representative. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman, for everything that you are doing, and to the Washington Dems for organizing this. And thank you, everybody, for being here. This is the 20th day of Mike Johnson keeping the House shut down and sending everyone home. And this is the 9th day of this Republican government shutdown. Republicans have control of the House. They've got control of the Senate. They've got control of the White House. They have the responsibility to govern. But instead of governing and negotiating with us to save healthcare, they've shut down the government. And they're not even pretending that they're interested in negotiating. Democrats actually stayed in DC in the days leading up to the shutdown, but Speaker Johnson sent all of his members home to host fancy fundraisers with their billionaire buddies, to relax on vacation, whatever they were doing. And the speaker, we're supposed to be in DC right now. The speaker has once again canceled votes this week, and apparently potentially next week as well, because he doesn't want to negotiate and govern, because maybe he doesn't want to swear in Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva from Arizona, who won her election more than 2 weeks ago and will be the 118th signature on the discharge petition calling for the release of all the Epstein files, and because apparently, according to a rundown of what was said in the Republican meeting this morning, that apparently he's afraid of what his members will say if he calls them back. Democrats have been crystal clear about our demands. Cancel the cuts from the big bad betrayal bill, extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits so that 22 million Americans don't see their premiums double, and lower healthcare costs for everyone so that people don't die. The Republicans' big bad betrayal that was passed several months ago would set up 15 million Americans to lose healthcare, all so that they could give a $7 trillion tax break to the wealthiest. Those were permanent tax breaks to the wealthiest, not for anybody else. 14 rural hospitals in our state would close because of that bill. And without action on these Affordable Care Act credits, 23,000 people in Washington's 7th district, my district alone, would see their premiums rise, and 288,000 Washingtonians would see their premiums rise. If you look at the numbers, it's really stunning. For a family of 4 making $129,800 a year, those insurance premiums are going to rise by $7,077. A senior couple earning $80,000 would see a $17,000 increase. And so this is literally who can afford this. And that's why Democrats are holding the line to save healthcare. I want to also just point out two of the too many lies that Republicans are telling. The first, and we've seen them on a media tour this week trying to stick this one, is that we could kick the can down the road and deal with this healthcare crisis later, but keep the government open now. That is just not true. Notices have already started going out showing that premiums have more than doubled in some cases. Millions of Americans are going to lose coverage or face skyrocketing costs now, starting in October. And that is even as premiums have already been consistently rising across the country. Another lie is that Democrats are doing all of this to give $1 trillion in health care for undocumented immigrants. This one is just absurd, especially as the Republicans' big bad betrayal bill actually took health care away from hundreds of thousands of people with lawful status in this country, including refugees and trafficking survivors. The truth that they don't want you to know is that undocumented immigrants have never actually been permitted to use even their hard-earned money to purchase coverage through the ACA or to receive comprehensive Medicare or Medicaid coverage, even as their labor supports those benefits for the rest of us. The Democratic bill does not change any of that in any way, shape, or form. And I think that we're seeing the same thing we see over again. Every time they're losing the argument, and they are losing the argument on healthcare right now. They try to lie and blame immigrants and distract you from the fact that they are the ones that slashed healthcare for 15 million Americans to give that $7 trillion tax break to billionaires and giant corporations. They are the ones that won't negotiate on saving healthcare. They are the ones that are illegally slashing benefits for Americans and militarizing our streets. None of that is about immigrants. Trump is using this moment, in his words, to quote, inflict maximum pain on the American people. That is not what a responsible president does. That is something that an authoritarian who only cares about maintaining his own power does. His OMB director, who happens to be, Russ Vought, happens to be one of the architects of Project 2025, which Trump said he knew nothing about, but now is claiming. Russ Vought is slashing programs and projects through the Department of Energy, including cutting a $1 billion grant for the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub. That's a project that creates over 10,000 jobs and helps build our clean economy. And these cuts aren't just affecting blue districts. In our neighboring district, Representative Baumgartner's district, Trump is cutting 4 grants for WSU, pulling millions of dollars in funding from that school. But unfortunately, we see a Republican Party that doesn't seem to care about their own constituents' health or well-being or jobs. And so Democrats are continuing to lead. I want to thank you all for being here today and happy to open it up for any questions you all might have.
Thank you so much, Representative. Carolyn Beck.
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Brad, thank you. Yeah, so how are you then ensuring that essential services in Washington State, such as food assistance, which is pretty critical, particularly throughout low-income communities and vulnerable communities, continue to function?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, we are doing everything we can to work with our city, local, county, state governments. I did a press conference with Executive Shannon Braddock at the end of last week, and I know that the county is doing some work to try and keep those services going. But I think at the end of the day, the pain that people are going to feel is coming directly from Republicans who refuse to govern. I know, I have a lot of respect for the federal workers who have been calling me, and I'm about to go to the reason I have to leave early is I'm going to go to a federal workers roundtable that we're doing. But many of them who are the most vulnerable are actually telling us to please hold the line. The ones that are going to lose their jobs, who are not being paid right now. And part of the reason that they're telling us that is because they know that the Trump administration has already cut 150,000 federal workers' jobs in the 9 months that's already passed. And these workers are saying to us, listen, if premiums rise as they are projected to, and with the cuts to Medicaid, we cannot afford healthcare. And so if you end the shutdown without negotiating this very critical issue for us, we're going to be in terrible dire straits, not to mention that nobody trusts that they're not going to continue to slash federal workers' jobs, even if even if we do reopen government. So I feel very grateful to people who are really taking the brunt of this and also looking at the bigger question of how we stand up and fight for people, their food assistance, their health care, all of those pieces. You might have seen that Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has come out and talked about this same issue. And while we disagree on so many different issues, I wish there were more Republicans who would have the courage to speak up for their constituents.
Thank you so much.
Do we have any other questions for Representative Jayapal? Folks want to raise their hands? Carolyn, are you asking another one?
Yeah, I mean, if there's time, I'd like to.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So then also, obviously y'all are in a tricky situation, but how are the Democrats, and you touched on this a bit, how are the Democrats planning to go forward from here to try to negotiate an end to the shutdown that is imperiling, WIC benefits and so forth?
Well, what we've said is come to the table and negotiate. We have been ready. We did not go home days before the shutdown. Marilyn, I see, has joined us. We were in DC, and I think that the reality, I just spoke to Senator Murray this morning as well. If you control the House, the Senate, and the White House, then you have to be willing to negotiate to get the votes that you need. And that's what we're calling for right now. And so I think it's really important that Republicans actually call their members back, that Mike Johnson calls us back, that we have those negotiations so that there is the opportunity for us to save healthcare for the American people, to cancel the cuts, to lower costs, and to reopen government. So that's exactly what this is all about right now. The American people are with us. Republicans have told their members not to talk about healthcare because they know that they're losing on the issue. And this morning, Mike Johnson's suggestion that he doesn't want to bring members back because he's afraid of what they're going to say, because more and more of them understand that they are not governing, whether they say it right now or not. So we are going to hold strong because it's our job to save healthcare and lower costs for the American people.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. And I know that the representative has to leave in just a few minutes, so we'll take the last one from Jerry Cornfield.
Okay, sorry about that. Representative, since you said they weren't willing to negotiate, if they turned around and said, we will negotiate, what's the Democrats' position? What are the Democrats prepared to cede ground on at this stage in order to protect the health care?
Well, we never do any negotiation in public. We've been clear that we want to cancel the cuts, that we want to extend the premiums, and that we want to lower costs for healthcare. And I know that the first step is that Republicans understand that they're supposed to be governing. They're supposed to be coming to the table and working with us to try to get a deal. And I also know that Democrats are standing strong. And, the other thing that is really important is whatever deal we come to, they can't then just go break a promise and rescind a bunch of money. And that's another thing that we've been talking to the Senate Democrats about as well, that we need to make sure that they don't continue to make and break promises the way that they have been making and breaking promises, not only to the American people about lowering costs on day one, but in Congress when they pass something and then they immediately pass a partisan rescissions package, or they slash agencies unconstitutionally, illegally, that they don't have the authority to do. So trust is very low right now, and there's going to have to be an ironclad agreement on how any deal that gets negotiated gets stuck to.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And thanks for the good work you're doing.
Thank you so much. Take care,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you. All right, we are now joined by our wonderful Representative Marilyn Strickland from the 10th Congressional District. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Marilyn is the Congresswoman is the first African American and Korean American woman elected to Congress, and she is honored to be the first, but certainly will not be the last. She is a member of the Democratic National Committee and is also the chair of the political arm of Asian American and Pacific Islander members of Congress, which is known as the Aspire PAC. So with that, I will hand it over to you, Representative Strickland. Thank you for being here.
Great. Well, thank you for allowing me to be here with you today, Washington Dems. I am in Washington, D.C. And as my colleague, Congresswoman Jayapal said, the Democrats have been coming to D.C. because we're actually serious about doing the people's work. Our colleagues, the Republicans, however, are completely absent. And I just want to reiterate some facts because this is incredibly important. The Republicans control the House, they control the Senate, and they control the White House. If there is a shutdown because of this Republican healthcare crisis, it is 100% on them. They are the ones who need to come to the table to say, here's what we're willing to concede. And I think about the effect of this. You know, so much about what we discuss in Congress, especially over the last 9 months or so, often feels as though we're losing the plot. And here is the plot. At a minimum, Americans expect one thing, the realization of what we call the American dream. Housing that you can afford, whether you rent or buy, access to a decent job or the ability to start your business, the ability to get access to affordable health care that will not break you financially, good schools, safety, the ability to retire with dignity and get the benefits that you have fought for and earned. And I would say this finally, just the ability to live our lives and be left alone in peace, right? This is what people want. And as we think about the fight that we're having right now, a lot of it is around what happened with the big, ugly bill that the Republicans passed, right? And the center of this is about healthcare, taking healthcare away from 15 million people to give tax breaks to the most wealthy people in the country under the guise of reducing the deficit. It doesn't do that. It actually makes it go up. And here's a very important part. In Washington state alone, 300,000 people will lose access to healthcare. In my district alone, in the 10th district, nearly 20,000. And here's why this is important. Having access to affordable healthcare obviously is about your health and safety and well-being. But when you cannot get access to healthcare, everything else becomes more expensive. And you have to make hard decisions about paying your rent or where you buy food. And so having access to healthcare is a healthcare issue, but it's also an economic issue. And that's incredibly important in this conversation. And what's sad about all of this is that we have Republicans who are willing to shut down government because they don't even want to have a conversation about providing healthcare to at least 15 million people who will lose it. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about senior citizens. We're talking about children. And here's the part of the story that doesn't often get told. 70% of the people who are in nursing homes get that paid for through Medicaid. If we cut Medicaid by this amount, where are these folks going to go? A lot of families do not have $12,000 or more per month out of pocket to pay for that service. Some families cannot accommodate bringing someone into their home if they don't have the proper medical care or facilities. And so this creates such a huge crisis in the United States that it's hard to fathom that this is what they're willing to do. We have been calling on Speaker Johnson repeatedly for weeks now to bring us back into session and to do this. And what they want to do is what they always do. Whenever they're losing an argument, they press their undocumented immigrants panic button. And as Congresswoman Jayapal said earlier, undocumented immigrants do not get access to Medicaid. That is patently false. And so as we think about the ramifications of this, we have to think about the people who are not getting paid right now, the people at the airports who are keeping us safe, people who are serving in the military. I represent Joint Base Lewis McChord, so many civil servants who have chosen this career. And so What I want to do right now is a couple of things. Make sure that we are communicating to as many people as possible. There are 212 Democrats in Congress, but there are millions of people in Washington state and across the country who can help us carry this message. And I think the other thing that's important too, as we think about all of this, you have one party that is standing with the American people, and you have another one that doesn't care if you get sick, that doesn't care if you can't pay your bills. And sadly, in some cases, they do not even care if you die. So I am standing with the American people. As Democrats, we are unified, we are steadfast, and we're going to continue to fight for the healthcare of the American people. Thanks so much for having me here today. It's my honor to represent you, both in the 10th Congressional District, but also across the entire state of Washington. Thank you, Shasti, for your leadership.
Thank you. And we've already got some hands raised, so we'll start with Scott Greenstone.
Hey, Congresswoman, it's good to see you again. I have a question about what you're hearing from the base in your district, military families in your district, and whether or not you'd be open to, if there were a deal on the table to fund just the military, would you be open to that, or are you going to hold the line on sort of all of it? To pay the military, I should say. Yeah.
No, thank you for that question. So there's actually a bill that was introduced about making sure that military members and their families get paid in the event of a shutdown. And so I'm a signatory on that. And I think there's some Dems that are sending that around. And I do believe that, I'm not going to negotiate in public because I'm not on the negotiating team, but we know how important it is for our military families because, as you know, a lot of them struggle with food insecurity. The cost of living is high in Washington state, and they often get sticker shock, and they're not getting 100% of their basic allowance for housing. And so there is a bill in play to address that specifically. If Speaker Johnson would call us back into session just to vote on that alone and to swear in our colleague from Arizona, whose election will be certified soon, I think that's something that would be possible. But it doesn't change the fact that when it comes to the healthcare of the American people, we're going to remain steadfast. So thanks for that question, Scott.
Great. And next up, we have Frank.
Okay. Hi. I had a question along similar lines as Scott, but I wanted to follow up in terms of payment for troops, and just wanted to get your take on the fact that next week we are coming to the point where they will start not getting paid. Meanwhile, there are legal battles all over regarding sending National Guard troops or not to send them into places like Portland and Chicago, and of course we're on watch to see if Seattle might be next. All of this is going on while troops might not be getting paid. I just wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, let's just talk about what's happening with this administration. And so it's the deployment of National Guard. And I'm in DC right now, and I see them all over the place in my neighborhood. And what is happening right now is that the National Guard are being used as a stunt, right? The president and the administration say, well, this is about public safety in these cities. If that's the case, why do we have National Guards coming from red states where they have their own crime issues going directly into blue states and blue cities? It's a big stunt. It's performative. The other thing too that's also alarming, as you all know, is the ICE agents, right? The low barrier requirements to become an ICE agent, them wearing masks, running around terrorizing people. And this is really, in my opinion, my strong opinion, a way for Trump to create his own personal military, to very intentionally try and provoke violence and riots and physical confrontations so that the president can declare martial law. And then when martial law is declared, guess what? You can't have an election in 2026. And so what we're advising people to do is to not take the bait. Go about your business, stay safe, protest peacefully, but do not give the administration the made-for-TV riot moment that they so desperately want. And back to your question about people not getting paid, right? People aren't getting paid because the Republicans made the decision to shut down government. Democrats are ready. We have been in Washington, D.C. every week since the shutdown. We're ready to negotiate, but they have to come to the table and tell us what it is they want to do. So I think what's happening right now with the militarization of National Guard, ICE agents being turned on citizens should be alarming to all of us. It is a complete abuse of power, but I do believe that there is a longer term game they want to play, and we just have to speak up about it. So thank you for that very good question.
Here on all of that. Thank you. Do we have any other questions for Representative Strickland? Okay, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Thanks for all the hard work.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay, next up, we have our incredible Representative Adam Smith, serving the congressional district, the 9th Congressional District. And thank you for being here. I know that you are running from another event, so we really appreciate you making the time. It is my honor to introduce him. He's a lifelong Washingtonian and is known for his work on national security, affordable healthcare, and housing, and his work to ensure government delivers for working families. Congressman Adam Smith has represented the 9th District of Washington since 1997 and serving parts of King County, including Seattle, Renton, Bellevue, Federal Way, and his hometown of SeaTac. He has been the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee since 2011. And with that, I will hand it over to you, Adam. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you, Shasti, and thank you for your leadership of the Washington State Democratic Party. Really appreciate that. These are very difficult times. You've been doing a great job, so thank you. Yeah, I think, and I agree with everything that Marilyn said earlier, but a couple big points in terms of how we approach this. One, the Republican approach is to simply not negotiate and to try to inflict as much pain on the American people as possible to force their way. And I think we really have to emphasize that point. I have been through several shutdowns before. Congress has always stayed in session during shutdowns, and we have always attempted to negotiate an end to the shutdown. Mike Johnson has sent us home, shut down Congress, and is refusing to negotiate, and that is doing great harm to the American people. We should really press them on that issue. But the overall shutdown, there's just two big issues. And certainly healthcare is at the top of that list. When the Affordable Care Act tax credits disappear, we will have millions of people lose their health insurance and millions more will see the cost of their healthcare go up. By the way, that applies even if you're not on the Affordable Care Act plans, because the more uncompensated care there is, the more our healthcare providers will shift those expenses over to other people. So this impacts the entire country, not just those people who happen to be on the Affordable Care Act or on Medicaid. But look, there's two big things. One, this is the Republican budget. They are asking us Democrats to vote for the Republican budget, to continue it. Whether that's for a day, a week, or 6 months, we should not do that. Remember, this is the budget that made the largest cuts to Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, and to food security in the history of this country. It also spent an extra $170 billion on the Department of Homeland Security, basically on ICE, on an extra $150 billion on defense, and gave away trillions in tax cuts to the wealthiest people in this country, driving the debt up by another $4 trillion. This is also the budget that President Trump has used to freeze programs that are priorities for Democrats. He's canceled clean energy projects that are going to drive up the cost of energy and attempted to punish his political enemies in this budget. The Justice Department is using its budget to pursue his political enemies and to let his friends get away with whatever crimes they commit. So we're not going to vote for that. They've attempted to pass the most partisan, extreme budget I've ever seen. And by and large, they've been able to do that with just Republican votes. But now, to continue, because of the rules in the Senate, they need at least 7 Democratic votes. And we should not give them those votes unless they give us something in return. This is their budget, their government. They are governing it in an extreme partisan way. Democrats should not be voting for it. So that's number one. Number two is the destruction of our democracy and the autocratic approach that Trump is taking to governing. He is basically overriding Congress on issue after issue in violation of the law and the Constitution. On tariffs, Congress has the power to levy tariffs. The president has usurped that. He is sending U.S. troops into our cities against the will of their governments, also a clear violation of the law. As I mentioned earlier, he has frozen spending already approved by Congress and blocked a variety of different programs unilaterally. that too is a violation of his power, as is suing law firms and media companies to attempt to cow them into simply, into basically supporting him. All of that we need to shine a light on and say we're not going to support that. And this shutdown fight gives us the opportunity to really focus that battle. Now, we got a lot of work to do that goes beyond the shutdown fight in order to stop Trump and actually get to the point where we have the coalition we need to be successful. But this is the most crucial moment to date in that fight. We need to stand strong and stand up for those principles that I just outlined. So I appreciate the support of Democrats. We're going to keep fighting, and hopefully, we'll make some progress here.
Thank you so much. Do we have questions for Adam? Yes, Jerry.
Okay, Congressman, we heard in this today about the Democrats are winning on messaging, that the Democrats are going to stand strong. They're not going to negotiate in public. What's your take on how all of this plays out in 2026 when the Democrats hope to retake control of the House and maybe the Senate? If everyone suffered pain by the long shutdown, do they actually, help Democrats take over next year? They remember this?
Two things. One, I think it plays out. We force Republicans to negotiate. I think the biggest thing it helps is right now, the Democratic Party is not in a good place nationally. We're polling low. You've all seen the information, the polling data and all the information out there about where the Democratic Party is at. We need to show people that we can fight and also focus on our issues. And I think that can help turn that around. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you. A year from now, there's going to be a whole bunch of other issues. No doubt about it. So we're not just going to be able to get the majority back based on this shutdown fight, but I think it will begin to shift the narrative. And I'll take you back to 1995 when that shutdown happened. And prior to that shutdown fight, Newt Gingrich and the Republicans were riding high. The shutdown fight focused the American people's minds on what really were the issues. What was the difference between what Newt Gingrich was talking about and what the Democrats were talking about? And it put us on a good path to doing better in 96, getting Bill Clinton reelected, picking up, I think it was 9 seats in the House. So I think it will have an impact. But no, this, however long this shutdown lasts, when it's over, we're going to have a whole bunch of other issues that we're going to have to fight. But it is really important that we stand strong on this to help change the perception of the Democratic Party and make it clear what we're fighting for. We're fighting for the working class, for access to health care, for access to childcare, for better education, for a budget that actually supports the American people. So it is one of a whole series of very important fights that we're going to have, but I think it does matter.
Great, Frank.
Congressman Smith, what is your take on this proposed bill to pay the members of the military, even if the shutdown continues? That the president has apparently said he would probably support that. The quote.
Well, I think I think it's an opportunity for us. I support it too. Mike Johnson has apparently said today that he doesn't support it. So I think that's something that will really make it look like that what the Republicans want to do is they want to inflict as much pain on federal workers and the American people as they possibly can, just to get a partisan political advantage. I think we can exploit that and say they're the ones who are blocking it. So I think it's something that we should support.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much for being here, Representative Smith. We really appreciate it. And thank you for all your
Shasta.
efforts.
Great to see you, as always.
You too. You too. Okay, folks, with that, we will send this recording as soon as it gets uploaded, and we're always available through our comms director, Stephen Reed, and at the press@wa-democrats.org email address. And thanks all for coming today. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.